Diablo is a name that is near and dear to any 90s PC gamer's heart. For me, it just takes one strum of the Tristram guitar to get my juices going. So this video is about the hole that Blizzard has dug for itself through a mixture of capitalism and their prior legacy in the ARPG genre. So let's do a very quick history. We went through Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Diablo 3. The jump between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 was 11 years. So if you go from Lords of Destruction all the way to, that was in 2001, all the way to the 2012, I think it was, release of Diablo 3, that's a pretty long refractory period, and everyone was pretty stoked to just get back into some Diablo. But without this gap, you actually run into the first half of the problem, which is actually a problem with the way that players conceive of ARPGs and, in fact, most Blizzard titles. You're thinking, like, what's the end game like? Which is a really weird thing to think. Like, I just want to get to the end of the game. The game is a formality. I just really want to see, what am I going to do once I've beaten the game? This puts developers in a really hard spot where they have to create some kind of a treadmill or just enough content to keep players engaged. Maybe you can distract players long enough so that they are kind of not aware, or at least they're okay with the fact that they're just chasing loot for the sake of more loot, for the sake of more loot, for the sake of more loot. But eventually that kind of breaks down. And in fact, every time that you are doing that, you're making it harder for yourself in the next expansion. And that might be why the King of the North was canceled, is because you just have this escalation. Like, it's not enough to just give you more content. It has to be bigger, better, wetter, smellier, stinkier, whatever it might be. You just have to make it big. And so that is just bloating budgets. And if you're doing the capitalism thing, there's only two ways you can grow your capitalistic endeavors. And that is, either you're going to raise your bottom line by getting more players to pay the same money, or you're going to get the same amount of players, maybe even less, to pay more money. Now, we've seen that happen. Let's give the devil his due here. Obviously, the real money auction house was like a big deal when it came out in Diablo 3. I didn't really like it, but then again, I was a World of Warcraft player, and I had seen 100,000 people just blasting, selling gold cheaper than the other guy, you know. So I think Blizzard knew that you were going to have some real money transactions either way, and they just wanted to control it and, of course, capitalize on it. So we're talking about Diablo. You got to give the devil his due. The problem is that I think that Blizzard with Diablo Immortal has shown to everyone that they are now full-blown whale hunters, right? So if they're trying to make sure that they're going to capitalize off of the most whales, I'd like to bring up this diagram for you. If you're going for whales, you're going to need to make sure that you can pay to win, and you can pay to win reliably, that you can laugh like a maniacal lunatic as you crush noobs because you've paid $200,000 for some ridiculous loot, and everyone must run from you in terror, right? So this is the power trip that they're basically creating for people. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I wouldn't do it, but hey, I'm not going to judge you. You can value what you want to value. That's your money. I'll just say this, that if I paid $100,000 to basically win, and then some like rogue imp fireball like just completely owns me, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to want a refund. I'm not going to get one, but I'd be very disappointed. So really, this tiny little fraction of, and I don't know how much it is, I'm not looking at the statistics here, I'm just guessing, it's not going to be huge, the overlap between whales and highly skilled people, what we call the skiller whales, TM. This is going to be a very small portion of the population. You're not going to be able to monetize it. You could obviously monetize it, and you would monetize it, but you're not going to monetize it the same way. You could just target the entire population of whales. So, and I don't mean the country. Now, as I was making this video, I came across this guy who is a bona fide skiller whale. So the mythical beast does exist. But if you listen to his argument as to why Diablo Immortal is actually a good game, and this was directed at Asmongold, you'll see that he argues that this sort of pay-to-win structure is actually just going to striate players according to, well, in this case, money, really. In other words, he says if you're a big-time, huge whale, pay-to-win tough boy, you're not going to go up against the free-to-play player that's just noobing around, starting up, trying to get some loot. You're going to try to get as much loot as you can, grind as much as you can, pay as much as you can, and go against the biggest, baddest whales. Of course, if there wasn't a pay-to-win model, you could still do this, only that the striation would be based on investment of time, maybe even skill level. But we've seen why this is not really a possibility for Blizzard at this point. I don't know the exact population of skilled players, and I don't know the exact population of whales. But let's assume for a moment that there's a lot more skilled players than there are whales. The problem is when you look at it from a monetary standpoint, this is what the Venn diagram looks like. And with the market saturated as it is, I don't think that Blizzard will look at too much potential gains in their player base. I mean, you've got so many options for ARPGs now compared to, let's say, when Diablo 2 came out. And what did you have, like Titan's Quest and Dungeon Siege? Now there's just so many options. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to monetize your player base more if you want to increase your revenue. And I think that this is why people are afraid that this will be the path of Diablo 4. So is there anything you can do to keep this enormous ship afloat, financially that is, while appeasing the player base that's just looking for basically infinite fun at the end of a game? It seems impossible. But to be fair, I've played maybe 10,000 hours or so of Smash Bros. And this is long after I had unlocked all of the characters and all of the stages, etc. It was just for the fun of playing the game. Now, the question is, does the ARPG genre and the gameplay that we know and love of Diablo, which basically just amounts to clicking a bunch, is there enough play there for you to actually be able to create such engaging gameplay? And if you do that, are you going to deviate so much from the standard that everyone loves that you're going to risk even losing some players? It seems like an impossible task. But what you can do, and I think this is pretty reliable, is just make it slightly challenging and make it feel challenging. Not just a numbers game. So it doesn't mean that I just have to go out and get more +1s and keep chasing +1 and +1 and +1. Because I love a loot chase, but I don't want it to just be about +1s. I want it to be about, the sort of horizontal improvement like we saw in Elden Ring. What it needs to feel like is it needs to feel like I'm chasing loot so that I can overcome a challenge a little bit more easily. But the goal is to overcome the challenge, and the challenge is fun. Can that happen in the end game of a Diablo and still cater to whales? I don't think it can happen financially optimally. So at some point in time, Blizzard is going to have to make the decision to say, we're going to drive more players in, and we're going to still capitalize on some pay-to-win players, perhaps, if they have to for their business models, but we're not going to try to 100% optimize that. Now, being willfully inoptimal is not something that investors or the bigwigs are going to look at very kindly. So we'll see if that's possible, because at the end of the day, that stock price is one heck of a shackle on development. It's a golden shackle latched onto the wrist of these poor developers who I'm sure each one of them are absolutely 100% passionate. I can only imagine what I would be like if I were able to be a part of the Diablo 4, Diablo 5, whatever team. And yet you've got that shackle on you, bound in gold in the depths of hell. So is there a way out of it other than this? I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you can think of anything, and please like and subscribe if you can tolerate my rants. I'll be doing more of these just simply to get things off my chest and to talk about video games, which I love.